Look, we just have to be honest about it. One of the biggest obstacles to success in football right now is fixture congestion. And I think we finally have to give Manchester United their due. They've eliminated all the fixtures. This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name is Elliot. Block me on Twitter. That's right. Manchester United, they fixed fixture congestion by having no fixtures. They will play, and this is true, 40 fixtures this season. Now, you probably know this already. Every team in the Premier League plays 38. You're going to be in the League Cup and you're going to be in the FA Cup. They went out of the League Cup to Grimsby Town when Ruben Amorim played with his little child's game in the rain, and they went out of the FA Cup at first opportunity, and they will play the minimum number of fixtures humanly possible for a team in the Premier League, which I'm sure will actually be a boon to them and allow them to navigate the season in such a way that they can qualify for nothing again. But kudos to them as they decide between Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Michael Carrick to steer the sinking ship that is Manchester United. Absolutely wish them nothing but misery, which you don't need to wish them. They've got that covered all by themselves. Per Mertesacker has announced that he will be leaving Arsenal at the end of the season. We might do something on that with someone who's more of an expert on the academy, but we're not going to do it today. Today, we're going to talk about the Portsmouth game through the lens of individual player performance, because I think it is a game not to analyze moments because they're overmatched opposition that eventually got blown away, but to talk about players in the context of their role in the squad, the pecking order, maybe a few things like the penalty, unfortunately. We'll probably talk about that, maybe set piece strength, things like that. We'll also look ahead to the Chelsea game. So that's what's on tap today. If you haven't checked out the Rob Holding interview on Patreon, you can check that out now. Obviously, we are going to have a lot of stuff over there soon. And what we do tomorrow, one of my favorite couple of pods we do every season, Matt Giant Gooner, who is really a research and analyst expert, does a tremendous job, is going to do a deep dive mid-season data review. Now, for some of you, there's a subsection of you listening going, I would literally rather pull every one of my fingernails out of my fingers. And I get that. Then there are others of you that this is right up your alley. And I can tell you, there is a PowerPoint deck. Don't worry. There is data, there are visualizations, and there's a lot of discussion of what the data says about Arsenal and our prospects this season, and why we will win the quad. So if you want to check that out, that'll be coming out tomorrow evening. Rice50 is the code if you want to get it for a couple quid off. Otherwise, just stay here. We'll have you covered as we do currently, and currently here to cover you with sweet, sweet podcasting goodness is Paul. Hello, Paz.
Woohoo!
Fresh off a birthday, so happy belated birthday to Paz, who turned redacted age yesterday. And Tim. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
Paul, you had something to add there?
I'm going to tell you a funny little story quickly.
Please.
My daughter, in her 20s, she loves birthdays and festive things and stuff, but she's not very good on what date is today. So she, the eve of my birthday, I suddenly thought it was like 10 p.m. She was out with her buddies. I'm like, does she even know it's my birthday tomorrow? And like, my birthday was Sunday. And so I messaged her and said, it's my birthday tomorrow. And she says, oh, crap. So she's apparently got me nothing. And I'm like, oh, she is screwed. I'm going to take the piss out of her royally and enjoy that aspect of my birthday, a giftless birthday. She shows up an hour later. Now, no stores are open. Amazon is not that quick. She shows up loaded to the gills with boxes of presents. And I'm like,
what?
How did you do that?
Was there anything in the boxes?
She was at a charity auction when I messaged her, and she was...
She bid on everything?
Yeah. You know those movies where there's like somebody standing and they're keep raising the paddle, and then there's somebody else on a phone talking to people in the Middle East with the funding. She was that person. She came back with like 5 boxes of shite, some of which turned out to be actually okay. But she bid on everything that moved just in case.
Yeah.
So how are you enjoying your new ironing board cover?
It was just what I needed, Tim. That was my party line at the time.
If it's the thought that counts, I don't know if that counts or doesn't count. We'll give her the benefit of the doubt. By the way, speaking of the thought that counts, I do want to let you know that at the end of this podcast, you'll be getting a segment with Mike from Gooners versus Cancer. He is engaged in a big 50K or 50-mile walk from club stadium to stadium to stadium in London to benefit cancer charities. And I wanted to get him on to explain a little bit about what he's doing, why he's doing it, and how you can help. So if you want to do that, stick around to the end, because Mike is wonderful with the energy he brings to helping support cancer charities through Gooners versus Cancer. Lost his father to cancer, and it's a a subject that means a lot to him, obviously. So we'll have him on at the end of the pod. Stick around for that. Okay, Tim, super quick on going to Portsmouth. It's been a while since we've been there. You've been there before. I wanted to ask you, there's a video doing the rounds and an anecdote doing the rounds of the day. Thierry Henry got his name sung by the Portsmouth fans for a performance there at Fratton Park, and what that meant to him. I'm guessing you're probably at that game, so I'm just wondering if quickly you want to regale people with a nice memory of a trip to Portsmouth?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, there wasn't a roof on the away end, so I remember getting thoroughly soaked. That was an FA Cup game that Arsenal won 5-1, and I think, if I remember correctly, hold on 1 minute, sorry, there's someone at my door, and they won't get the message.
Doorbell music. Carry on, please, Tim.
It was food, so I did have to kind of get it.
That is important.
Yeah, so if I remember correctly, Portsmouth were kind of fighting relegation. It was their first season in the Premier League. So they didn't really care about the FA Cup, and they were a little bit D-mob happy. And actually, I think it was a really smart move by them if this is what they intended, because Henry, after that, never showed up at Fratton Park. All of his performances after that were total rubbish. And I genuinely believe that on a subconscious basis that he didn't want to upset them after that. But yeah, look, Fratton Park is one of the kind of noisier grounds in England. It's a very, very kind of old, some would say decrepit, some would say charming kind of ground. And very intense kind of home fans. I think you probably would have heard that at least in the first half yesterday. And having been absent from the Premier League for 16 years, I think they, and also they're in a relegation fight of their own at the moment, they probably regarded this as a bit of a free swing and a chance to bloody the nose of a big boy. So yeah, Pompey away, it's half decent. My 10th time there, and I've never seen us lose. So there we go. Yeah. And the last time we played there was one of the games before lockdown. And I remember that was kind of travelling back from that was very, are we going to do this again anytime soon? It was like that very weird period, early March 2020. So happier this time, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, it didn't start out like you were going to be happier because Arsenal conceded a goal right away. And Paul, this is a game where, and these games can be tricky, right? Because Arsenal are expected to win and expected to win comfortably, heavily. Manchester City had put 10 past lower league opposition Exeter. Crystal Palace has gone out to Macclesfield, by the way, which is an incredible result. But so there's an expectation of performance, and you do have a team that had 10 changes in it. And whenever there's 10 changes, cohesion is not going to be what you expect, certainly from kickoff. But players want to impress. They did not necessarily do that 5 minutes in when there was a poor giveaway. I don't think Kepa does well with the way he makes the initial save, and there's a goal for Portsmouth. So do you want to quickly diagnose for me the wrongdoing in the Portsmouth goal and who will feel most ashamed of themselves?
Yes, who will feel the wrath and the wrongdoings, you would say. Well, to be fair, it was a ding-dong first few minutes, right? There was a lot of activity down there right side in the Myles Lewis-Skelly area of the pitch. Probably didn't do a couple of throw-ins, probably didn't do anybody's nerves too good. Like you and I, something like 4 or 5 years ago, you will remember, Elliot, went to our shared garage. Like Microsoft came from a garage. You and I went to the garage and built the Crapatron 2000.
I remember the Crapatron.
Yep. To run such games through the computational machine that it is, to be able to adjust it for performances. Because it's very hard to, as you alluded to, assess a game like this and map it to, connect it to a Premier League style game. But we have a metric, a system that adjusts these performances. And even under the Crapatron 5000, which is the current version, you would still say that was a good crap first goal that we conceded. That was the answer.
That was a long way to go to get to that.
Yeah. It wasn't good. Madueke spills the ball on the right-hand side. He looked he was exciting going forward. He was not a two-way player. He was a one-way player. And like probably three situations like that fairly early on, at least through the first half, where you would say he was soft with his back to goal wherever he received it. So that was the first sin. They spin it to the middle in front of the box. I think Marino does okay pressuring the guy in front of him, but Norgaard's been doing this interesting thing, at least in the early minutes, and continue to of stepping into midfield where Zubimendi is. I was listening to the Arscast, and Andrew thought that was a bug, not a feature. I was assuming it was a feature. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And it seemed like the other guys were reacting to it. Ben White was sticking back with Gabriel, but like Norgaard had just been in midfield in the Zubimendi spot. He's back in position for this, so it's not like he's not in the back line. I just wonder, that's not necessarily good for cohesion between your centre backs. They look roughly aligned, but that's not the same as being aligned. It's not like that whole thing of kind of having a piece of rope between the two centre backs. Anyway, it's all feels like they might just be reassembling the back line at just the last moment as the shot hits towards Kepa. So everything's just slightly off a little bit. Kepa should clearly push it out decisively rather than to a player. And it's a bit of a scramble and they score a goal and it's like, oh my God. It's not quite like, oh my God, in a Premier League situation where it's like, oh shit, the whole season's gone and we have to give back the trophy they haven't given us yet. It was, oh my God, it's Portsmouth, the FA Cup, 3-4 minutes. I hope we react rather than we become one of those stories for the day that everybody goes around talking about for the FA Cup.
Yeah, I have to say, like, I don't think this was that big a deal. I think, like I said, when you make 10 changes, there's going to be things that don't click right away. And when you win as heavily as we won, I don't know that you need to pick the bones out of a bad moment here or there. The only thing I'll say that I think is worth noting is that, like, Mikel will probably want some more clean sheets to pop up here and there. Obviously, we had a clean sheet against Liverpool. Unfortunately, both sheets were clean. But we conceded to Portsmouth, 2 to Bournemouth, 1 to Villa, 1 to Brighton, 1 to Palace, none to Everton, 1 to Wolves, 2 to Villa. Like, it is a run where this exceptional defense that we have is still putting up decent underlying metrics, but still finding ways to concede goals. And I get that this is almost an all-change team, but we will still want to just stop doing dumb shit that gives goals away here pretty soon is my thought. I think Noni Madueke is a big talking point in this game. So before we even get to set pieces, which I do want to discuss, Tim, I just want to dive into Noni. I think...
Bet you do.
Right, yep, okay. I want to run to you? I don't know. Look, the Noni Madueke performance is a really tricky one in a way because he gives the ball away poorly. He really wasn't switched on for their goal. I get the sense that the penalty incident is not something Mikel's going to be happy about. I mean, the taking of the penalty, because first of all, it's just a shit penalty. Fine. Players can take shit penalties, but I find it hard to believe he's the penalty taker. Now, if you think back to a moment before I really knew Noni Madueke very well and probably judged him too soon as a player, much like you do when you judge players on other teams, you judge them by big moments that go viral because you're not watching their team closely. And one of the viral moments that happened at Chelsea was Noni Madueke fighting with his teammates to take a penalty that wasn't his penalty to take, right? And here he winds up taking a penalty that I will assure you was not his penalty to take, I'm guessing in the pecking order, and then taking it very badly. By the same token, sensational set piece delivery in this game for goals that we did score. And in addition to that, maybe the final ball isn't always right, but he just looks like a player that is uncoverable in some ways in 1v1 situations, can always get to the byline, incredible acceleration, the ability to beat a man. The end product needs to be better, of course, but he ends the game with a couple assists from his set pieces, and he ends the game having absolutely terrorized the right flank for Portsmouth, but also having been culpable for a goal they score and taken a penalty poorly that wasn't his to take, where had he scored it, my instinct is that cushion would have allowed Gabriel Magalhaes to come off a little bit earlier too, rather than having to wait till 75 minutes. So a mixed day, and this was really a Rorschach test because I've seen both sides of the Noni analysis here that, sort of he's a bozo and it was a terrible performance, and also that he was unstoppable and is a unique talent. And both of those things feel a little bit true to me.
Yeah, it really was the best of times and it was the worst of times.
Yeah, there you go.
It was a very kind of noisy performance. And I think had he not carried so much threat going forward, and I think he was our most, Martinelli scored a hat-trick. And I'm still going to say Madueke was our most threatening player going forward on the day. And we saw all the stuff that we heard about when we bought him, about how relentlessly he is, how he just constantly goes and goes and goes at the fullback, perhaps doesn't have some of that timidity that sometimes Martinelli gets, where if he doesn't beat the fullback the first time, he doesn't really want to go back for more. Whereas Madueke, he has that thing all attackers need, the ability to forget, which is very much in his favour. But there are some things he should remember. It's about what sticks and what doesn't. And if he weren't so really, really dangerous going forward in this game, I think he could have been set for a spell in Mikel Arteta's out of possession penitentiary. That might have been you're not coming on for the next 3 or 4 games. I mean, to be fair, with the games we've got coming up, cup games, I think that's probably not the case anyway. But I was a bit upset with him over that penalty. And the reason is, I don't know why, I had the word unprofessional kind of swirling around my mind, and that might be harsh. That's because I don't know that for sure. Do you know what I mean? It's a big word to throw around. The thing was, so I'll discuss the technique of it, which is awful. If you're going to take a stutter penalty, you run up straight. You don't his run up was like near the touchline. He was basically like perpendicular to the ball. It's like you're going to drag it if you run up like that. So that leads me to believe you have not practiced this at all, because you would only need to do it once to understand that if you take that wider stance on your run up and you try and go in the other corner, it's probably going to go wide because you need to be walking up to it kind of head on. So, aside from my kind of impressions or whatnot, and whether that was just governed by frustration, because like you, I think 3-1 at half time, certainly Gabriel would have been coming off for sure. And the game would have been over. It would have been absolutely over, I think, at that point. But I was a bit annoyed, and I was a bit like maybe he was the nominated penalty taker.
Do you
I
think
don't
so?
know.
Just I looking at the players that are out there, I don't think so.
Jesus doesn't have a great record with them, to be quite honest. Could have been Martinelli himself. I'm with you. I kind of think, would it have been him? And obviously he won it, and he won it with a really good piece of play.
Marino was captain on the day. He could have been the penalty taker.
So it did feel a bit like, it did feel actually a little bit like that maybe they didn't really have a nominated penalty taker, and he was like, well, I won it, so I'm taking it. And everyone's kind of went, okay, fine. And he probably wasn't the best player to do it. I kind of think at 3 or 4-1 up, you can kind of do that, but at 2-1, no, do the business, get it in the back of the net. But he was excellent. I think he really should have had a second penalty as well, which I think the referee doesn't give out of pity to Portsmouth, essentially, because the game's over. And I think maybe we can come to this, but the way we adapted our set pieces, because we knew we didn't have Saka and Rice's booming deliveries that go all the way to the back post. We knew that Madueke is probably more of a front post delivery merchant, as it were, and it seems like we cut our cloth for that accordingly.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And it is the case that when you have a player like Noni Madueke in your team, there's always going to be two sides to the coin, because there's going to be the side where you see the devastation that he causes for defenses. There's also going to be the side where you see the frustration that generates when he doesn't get a final ball right. And in terms of having the quality, I mean, look, the set piece delivery proves that the quality is there, that the technique is there, the ability to beat players proves that the athleticism is there. And I have to say, I'm actually not sure all the time how much of the culpability lies with Noni for the final ball, even because when you cut a ball back or you put a ball into the middle of the box, a lot of that is also determined by the intelligence of the movement of the players. I mean, I can tell you, I have seen Erling Haaland head balls in or score from crosses that when the cross left the boot, I was like, well, that's going to no one. And his movement and his acceleration is so good that he makes a mediocre cross look like a sensational assist. So I am encouraged by him, because I still think when you have a player that defenses can't live with and their shape, they get pulled out of their shape and they can't defend with one player on that guy, that's a boon for the rest of your attack. So I'm inclined to stick with it, although I think that if Mikel likes teachable moments, this game is probably a teachable moment in terms of focus and professionalism. And, he's a very young player. And he comes from a place that I think is probably short on professionalism and focus at Chelsea Daycare Center. So he's got a teachable moment there would be my instinct on the matter. Paul, before we talk set pieces, I just want to talk Martinelli since Tim brought it up. I think this is the start of his villain arc, right? Evil Martinelli. He obviously viciously assaults Connor Bradley in a way that has never before been seen. Way worse, obviously, than any of the leg-breaking challenges we've seen, than what Caicedo did to Marino, way worse than what Liam Delap did to Kusanov against City, things that can hurt a player. He offended the player. And, that's the kind of thing you can't come back from. But all kidding aside, no, he got some boos to start, and the way he handled this villain arc is to score a hat trick. Gabriel Martinelli is one of those players, again, that I think we've gone through a bit of a journey with him because it's clear he's a good player. It's also clear we want to win very, very big things. And there have been questions about whether Gabriel Martinelli is quite at that elite level to be a guy who's constantly playing for a team that wants to win all the big things. And his place would certainly have been under challenge this season. And maybe even an exit was a possibility this summer. And sort of similar to Leo, he's gone full tilt to try to show that he does belong at the level. And now, I believe, in all comps, sits as our top scorer this season. Now, granted, a hat trick against relegation-threatened championship side Portsmouth will help with that, but it counts. The thing that impresses me is just the striker quality of the goals he's scoring. I mean, those are two very good strikers-type headers from corners. He should have had a fourth. He hits the post with a ball that comes all the way through to the back stick, and he's nearly responsible for the own goal in many ways. So it could have been a 4 or 5 goal game for Martinelli. And I'm just wondering, Paul, where you think this puts us in terms of Martinelli really trying to reassert his elite level at Arsenal, in terms of what is pretty fierce competition for a place on the left-hand side.
Yeah, it's an open question. What he has done consistently is he always looks focused. There are reasons a player like him in his situation could look disgruntled, it's very hard. You were basically lined up to be Arsenal's starter as Saka progresses, as Emile Smith-Rowe progresses, but not everybody can keep along that arc Saka has developed. And by comparison, you're kind of, Leo Trossard comes in, I don't know what his view of Leo was, but that wasn't the signing we were looking for that January. And over time, and certainly this season, Leo has consolidated. Other players come in who can threaten that area. And he stayed focused and been an impact sub for us. And, as we have a changing lineup on his side of things, and he does seem like a player who needs one other player to dovetail with him and to unlock him a little bit. Saka is a 3-dimensional player. Martinelli's a great 2D, 2.5D player, where certain situations, certain game states absolutely suit him, and nobody does what he does, certainly not from the left-hand side. And it turns out that maybe, once again, the player that unlocks him is Gabriel Jesus. It's one more game in which they line up together, and Jesus does not occupy the area around the penalty spot when we're attacking. He's all over the place. You can like it or not like it, but one thing's for sure, time and time again, you see Martinelli making runs that take him super central because that space is available to him. And he had a game of it. He was great on the set pieces, the corners, decisive. If we're going to do that thing a lot, I don't know if he'll always be the nominated flicker honor. He seemed to be one of two, but he was the guy who got to the ball. Clever headers, used his hump for the first one, but he gets it that's all that was available. He had to stoop down, knock it on, and he got something on it. Second one, where he almost spins around off the side of his head. He knows exactly where that's going. That was great. And just Madueke, I think his delivery is super reliable. Martin, he's going to put it into a good spot and people need to run onto it. Martinelli still needs to work on that a little bit. His crosses can be great. His whipped crosses where he cuts in on his right and spins it in, these days often to where Jesus might be, really good. Some of the other crosses can be a little wayward. So he's still figuring things out. But he's clearly a dangerous player, clearly a player you want on your bench for sure. He just wants to be the guy who starts. And he's got some work to do, obviously, to shift Leo. But his success this season may be a function of how fit can Gabriel Jesus get, so that 1-2 punch, if Arteta sees it the same way, is something we see more and more to share the load. It won't be the starting lineup all the time, but could be 1 in 3 games, let's play Jesus and Martinelli in that combo.
Yeah, I mean, the combinations are a big part of it too, right? Kai is about to be back, and we'll definitely be talking about that in a moment.
Yeah, and he wanders right? And Jesus wanders left.
Yep, and I think, obviously, Martinelli's best form has been seen at the club with Jesus starting up front. Maybe his least impressive form with Kai starting up front. There's correlation, causation questions around that, but it'll certainly be an open question because I don't think, as good as Leo has been, and he's been brilliant, I don't think you would say there's a Saka on the left in the sense of that name is written in ink on the team sheet and you're going to get it. So Martinelli also, I think, is learning a powerful lesson, right? Which is the biggest way to put bad news behind you is play football good. Because if you play football good, people just stop talking about the other stuff. And scoring a hat trick in the FA Cup gets you out of a lot of the discussion around how he viciously assaulted Connor Bradley, right, Paul?
Yeah, it does. It's like nothing defeats the bad news like putting in 3 goals in the net. I did think it was a little inauspicious when I saw the right fullback for this game was a guy called Devlin, who turns out to be a Northern Ireland fullback. I'm like, okay, this is a narrative maker one way or the other. There's one point at which he went down, I think it was a Merino challenge, and I'm like, okay, Gabriel, now run over, pick him up in your hands, maybe chew up some food, put it in his mouth, or give him CPR, start pushing on his, like, be Florence Nightingale.
Yeah, well, let's just put it this way: the traveling support weren't Florence Nightingale. There was a chant that went up from the away supporters suggesting that Gabriel Martinelli should get somebody off the pitch who was down injured. There was also another really, really good away chant, and I'll just give you a second on it, Tim, about Arsenal superfan and Tottenham Hotspur manager Thomas Frank. You want to repeat that one?
Yeah, the Arsenal boys are on a bender. Thomas Frank is a silver member.
So good.
A very, very good one. A lot of chance of Thomas Frank as a Gooner and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's one of the kind of valuable things. Because one of the things some Premier League teams are doing, Manchester City, is like they split up the away fans now to try and basically take away the away atmosphere. But you go to a ground like Fratton Park, in the cup, you get the whole end as well. So, like, everyone's kind of close together. That's why you get, like, every year at Bournemouth, there's a new chant because there's about 20 people there and they're all sat together. So, yeah, it was, and some good back and forth between the home and away fans as well.
Yeah, I liked that one. All right, well, Tim, I don't think we need to go any further on Martinelli, and I do want to get to Kai Havertz, Ethan Nwaneri, a couple other things, Myles Lewis-Skelly's form. But I want to just talk set pieces for a minute. It is the case that, again, based on how we won this game, you're going to see articles out there and narratives that you're going to encounter on social media about, this Arsenal team, they're going to win things and do it with set pieces. And it's like, it's almost stretching to the point where somehow that's not allowed. And I don't really understand it. And especially for a club in Arsenal that went through probably more than a decade of being regarded as not minding the details and not being physically up for the battle, to be a team now that frustrates everyone by being so prepared and up for the battle. In fact, Thomas Gronemark, the throw-in coach, is now going to be a consultant at Arsenal. And if you want to hear what he has to say, we have an interview with him over on the Patreon. But
very good one.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. Phil did the interview. But the set piece thing is a positive. And we are a team with an elite defense. We are a team with a very good, but maybe not elite attack. And that may be tied to the fact that we focus on not giving away goals defensively. But we are uniquely elite from a set piece and especially corner kick standpoint. And I just think it's time to try to find a way to connect to that and marvel at it instead of using it as a stick to beat the team with. And so here we go. We're down a goal away in a cup tie. It can be tough. The crowd gets up. It's a rainy day. You've made 10 changes. And how do you get back into it? By just being way too good and physical for, admittedly, a terrible set-piece defending team in Pompey. But do you think we'll ever get to the point this season or with this team where people just start to embrace set-piece dominance as a really great and enjoyable component of how this team wins things?
Externally, no. And I think it's really silly, right? And this is it kind of reminds me of the whole like Panenka thing with penalties. So Panenkas are actually one of the most logical ways to score a penalty. It's just if you mess it up, it looks bad, but it's a really like there's this idea that it's like taking the mick and all that, and I really don't think it is. It's just a very logical way to score the penalty with a little bit of sleight of hand. It made me think, this kind of, they only score from set pieces. Why is that any different to Erling Haaland scoring for Man City? Why do we not say, you only score from Erling Haaland? Like, why is that not? Like, all good teams have like a cheat code, if you want to refer to it that way. Like, you only scored because of that goal scorer that you got. It's like,
it's like when an elite keeper keeps a goal out and someone goes, well, you should have lost. It's like, but we have that keeper.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great point, Tim. I mean, is it really more exciting that some guy puts in a cross and Erling Haaland rises up and puts it in the net than everybody's going, Arsenal's got a corner kick coming? That's quite exciting. There's a build-up. There's the whole anticipation. They should love this. There's a narrative around it, and it unlocks games. Otherwise, the bastards just sit in. It's like the can opener that gets the can opener. It's the bottle opener that gets your beer so you can drink it. What are they complaining about? We scored 4 goals because we opened up the game.
But it's also, so much of it's built on misunderstandings as well. Like, you're like Stoke City. It's like, nobody had a problem with Stoke City being good at set pieces. That is a revision of history. Nobody was sat there going, they were, maybe some people were, but I think
who hated it? We did, because they kept sticking it down our throat.
And I always maintained, and I've got it all in writing from 10 years ago, Rory Delap's long throws when you're not on the end of them, incredibly exciting. Like, imagine that you get a throw in 40 yards from goal and it might be a goal. That's great. That's really exciting kind of play. There's just this very like bizarre kind of snobbery about it. But I think the problem people had with Stoke City was more the like guys going off in an ambulance with like oxygen masks on. I think that's more what we were bothered about, guys. I don't think we were having a go at them for being good at corners. And so, like, why wouldn't you? And I also think there's a conflation with Arsenal as well. And I hear it from people that I really respect and I think should know better, that it's almost like the only thing we're good at. And it's like, it's clearly not. Like, what people continually get wrong is they see Arsenal as like the set piece team. And that's not it. What it is with Arteta is he wants to be as good at every single thing as Arsenal can be, because we're not only scoring from set piece. We didn't score from a corner for 2 months, right? And we won a lot of games. Like, it happened somehow. Like, people mischaracterize Arsenal as like the set piece team. And actually what's really going on is Arteta wants to be good at everything, wants to be good at transitions, breaking down low blocks, being direct, like, just be like, I'm going to do an article on this soon, but I think the strength of Arteta's Arsenal is, and because I've been reading a lot with Chelsea and Man U sacking their managers and West Ham circling the drain, like, what's their identity? What's their philosophy and all of that? Personally, I think a lot of that is bullshit, quite frankly. And the thing I really value and love about Arteta's Arsenal is there is not a preoccupation with what's our identity? Like, what are we, what are we too good for? What are we above? And what's like, I think you can get very sanctimonious about that kind of stuff. Whereas I think with Arteta's Arsenal, it's let's be good at everything, corners included. And you're right, like in this game, our corners were great and we caused problems with pretty much all of them. I don't understand why that's any less worthy than, like you say, Paul, a cutback or a cross into the box.
And a few things here. Because this is the thing, the mischaracterization of us as a defensive team that doesn't attack and waits for corners is obviously wrong, right? I mean, I can understand if we sat in a deep block, defended for 86 minutes, and then tried to hoof it long and earn a corner, that people just be like, this is terrible football to watch. But as we know, the problem is teams are getting better at playing in low blocks and getting better at being organized. Manchester City have the best attack in the Premier League, right? Part of that's because they have a goal-scoring robot. They have 4 games this season where they've scored 0 goals. Liverpool are the second best attacking team in the league, right? Everybody thinks they're a good, fun attacking team. They've scored 0 goals already this season 6 times. We have scored 0 goals twice. That was a big problem for us last season, wasn't it? 0 scorelines. Games where we were held because teams can get in a low block. We are still the team that pushes the highest up. We are still the team that tries the most to score. It turns out, unfortunately, we don't have an attacker of the quality of Erling Haaland or Mohamed Salah. And so we use set pieces to open these games up. I also think, again, if set pieces were like a technicality, right? Something where it's like, if you kick the ball out for a corner 4 times in a game, you get a penalty. I'd be like, all right, well, that's bullshit. But the talent of Saka, of Rice, of Nani's delivery, of Gabriel Magalhaes in the air, of the header of Gabriel Martinelli, of the setup, I think is also there. So,
and because we're scoring goals in so many games, the other team has to play. The net entertainment value should be higher because they can't sit in because we scored a goal.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it opens games up. And I want to be clear for people who are saying, well, why are you addressing the narrative? I'm addressing this to Arsenal fans because I do think that there is still a reluctance to see us with clear eyes, because there's this thing that because goals come from corners, that we aren't a good team from an attacking standpoint, or that somehow it isn't as aesthetically pleasing. And I get it. Like 20 pass sequences that lead to beautiful combination play that lead to goals are prettier. They are. There's just no debating that. The amount of those goals that get scored these days is just lower. It is. All the metrics are down, by the way. Goals are down. XG is down. Ball and play time is down. And I think the reason is teams are better coached. They have better talent. There's better defenders. The days of semi-professional level players being in the Premier League with semi-professional level coaches and the elite teams taking them out just isn't there. Once upon a time, you know, Manchester United, Chelsea, City, or not even City back then, but, you know, Arsenal, you know, they just wouldn't lose to the bottom half teams at all, home or away. Now everybody takes points off everybody. So it is the case that you need to be better on the details. We are good on the details. And I still think that this is going to be a critical part of us winning things, because I believe we have the best defense in world football. I do. But I don't think we will ever have the best attack. I don't think we'll have the best attack in the Premier League. I think we'll have a very, very good one. But we will need this set piece dominance to be the finishing touch on a team that wins big things. So it's just a question of, I think, adopting it as our identity instead of criticizing it as our identity. And that's, you know, maybe that's more of a narrative debate than it is a footballing debate, but it is really repeatable. I think there was a point in time when we viewed it and we're like, this is luck. See, that's what's changed, right? When it first started and we were first good at corners, there might have been a sense of, well, this is fluky. They're getting them off corners. I tell you now, we have proven it's not fluky. When you look at the quality of the delivery, the quality of the plays we run, and the quality of the players who get on the end of this stuff, it's not fluky. And to Tim's point, when he said, well, there was this period where we didn't score any set-piece goals. You know why? Gabriel Magalhaes was out. So we have players, similar to Erling Haaland, who are good at things, and when they're there, we're better at things. So I think it's just time to accept that this is repeatable, and it is a critical part of how we win stuff. I do want to talk about Ethan, Kai, and Chelsea. Before I do that, Tim, super quick, I know we are going to talk charity with Mike at the end of the pod, but there's a women's team player whose mother is suffering from cancer and struggling to get the resources necessary for treatment. And if you just could spend a quick minute updating people on that, I think it'd be good to cast a light on that too. And I realize these can be hard times for people, so we want to be cautious about not asking people to constantly be giving. But if people have means, there's a lot of good causes, and this is certainly one of them.
Yeah, definitely. So Kyra Cooney-Cross's mother, Jess, unfortunately got a terminal cancer diagnosis. Jess is only 45 years old as well. And Kyra has sisters and everything back in Australia. Needless to say, women's players are not paid what men's players are paid. So the family set up a GoFundMe link to help with medical bills and other things that obviously come into focus when this happens. I've put them kind of on my socials quite a lot, on the Arsenal Women Askcast and our Match Day vlog and everything like that. Jess Cooney, Yeah, and it's a real shame that someone from the Arsenal family, as it were, who was incidentally given this news, but who'd just come into the team and was playing really well as well. But she's back in Australia with her family at the moment.
Yeah, I hate to hear that. And it all ties in, right? A cancer diagnosis there. Mike doing what he's doing for cancer because it devastates families in so many ways. So a couple of not so uplifting stories, but a couple of causes that are certainly worth your time. I will put both links in the show notes today. Okay, let's hear from some brands, and then we will talk Ethan, Kai, Chelsea, and more. Okay, enough of that. Paul, Ethan Nwaneri is a player that I think we all feel has immense talent, the kind of talent that can go to the top of the game. We saw what he could do from the right wing last season. This season, it's been a conversion to midfield, and that's been a tricky job for him because not only is it a harder position, I think, in many ways, and one that maybe takes more time to develop into, but also it's a crowded field, and he hasn't had as much opportunity as he would like. This was an opportunity for him to play, and I thought, unsurprisingly, started a little bit slow, but once he started to really feel confident on the ball, you saw what makes him a fairly unique midfielder for us because of his carrying ability and his dribbling ability. You have to be willing to take risk there because obviously those are areas where if you lose the ball, it can be quite dangerous. But when he does really feel confident in his ability to beat a man and carry through midfield, that's when you see some really special things from Ethan, some of that precocious talent come through. So while I wouldn't say this was a star turn for him, I thought the way he grew into the game was really encouraging. What about you?
Yeah, so I watched this one again because I guess I came in with my priors, and I felt he didn't bring it the last few times he had minutes for the Arsenal. And yeah, he had a slow first couple of few minutes, plus the team was a bit discombobulated. And like in my mind, that continued, but actually very quickly he gets into it. He was great. He was, when I really had a good look at him, he was up for it. He was on it. He was aggressive in his passing, aggressive in his runs. He was doing both sides of the game. He was getting back, sliding into tackles, which, like, I think we think he's not committed to the other side of the game. I don't know that positionally he always knows exactly in an Odegaard way where to be in the rest defense or in our out of possession shape, but like I don't think that's ever going to be due to lack of application. So I think he's going to nail that. He's clearly a smart guy. So I think he's going to get the out of possession part of it. That when his time arrives at Arsenal, I don't think he'll be a player that Arteta's thinking, oh, okay, we're in good shape here. Let's get him off to protect the lead. I think he does that work naturally because he snaps into when we lose the ball. He's sharp. He makes a decisive run backwards when a player who's a little bit ahead of him is carrying the ball. He will run him down and make his presence felt. But his on the ball game, it was great. I went back. Everything he did pretty much was clever, moved us up a line, accelerated us. Now he's going to get running through the Crapatron. He's going to get a little more space in this game. This should be the kind of game on paper where he can show off his stuff. He does. I thought he really there's two players who leap out to me in this game watching it again. This is Marino's masterpiece. Yeah, everything he does is like, I expected a few blips going back to it. I knew he'd had a good game. I went back. He's brilliant. Ethan is brilliant. Marino should hang this in the Louvre, right? Only Ethan probably wants to grab it and hang it in the, I don't know, the Tate Gallery.
There go our French listeners.
Yeah. Louvre.
There you go.
They are now, okay, your mind automatically goes to, well, it's Portsmouth, but there's more to it than that. I mean, it might have been the license it gave them, but they got into a groove that even when they were pressed, those two connected, found each other. It was great. If anybody's got 90 minutes that they don't know what to do with, go back and look at those two players. It will light you up. Both of them are just on it. There's a whole section to be done on Marino and what he does without the ball, playing as a DM, progressive passing. Ethan matches that. with a hell of a lot less minutes coming into it. So I'd been a little concerned that Ethan, needed a loan. Apparently he doesn't want a loan. And I'm like, well, is he going to get, this was his chance, and I think he really took it. He came with a decisiveness I haven't seen in recent times.
It's a run for him to show the manager he's more ready for midfield, because you can certainly make an argument for him playing the League Cup semifinal. Even if you regard that as a very big, important tie, there's going to be some rotation for it. I'm just telling you that now. So he could be in line for that. Inter and Kairat, the significance of those games is much lower given where we are on the table and where the competition is. I think we'll probably go full strength for Inter. Kairat, we certainly won't need to, especially if we get a result at Inter. So there's some opportunity for him here to put himself in the frame for minutes in games where the jeopardy is higher. And we'll just see if that happens. He's still very, very young, especially by the standards of a central midfielder. So we'll see, but I think it's a good sign. The thing that is hard, of course, and this is why I'm not going to do a big segment on Marino looking brilliant. He was brilliant. A player of that caliber at that stage of his career should look brilliant against bottom of the championship opposition. And you know what?
But should he?
So, yes, he should. Yeah. Christian Norgard started in central defense and looked great.
Well, he did look brilliant.
You should look great at that level.
No,
but no one thinks Christian Norgard should start defense against Chelsea or
I think
Forest.
It's really hard to look brilliant. You can look good.
We're going to move on. Tim, Myles Lewis-Skelly. If I'm going to sit here and say you should look great against this level of opposition, then I think it's fair to say Myles continues to be going through some bumps in the road at fullback. Once again, though, quick thinking on the free kick, plays it to Jesus. Jesus' sensational cross to Martinelli. That's a brilliant goal. And it comes from those midfielder instincts from Myles. And in fact, Myles' best moment against Liverpool came when he turned a man, drove forward, and played a perfect slide rule pass between center back and fullback against Liverpool for one of our few decent moves in the game. It is when he's isolated against an attacker where you're seeing him struggle to rediscover his identity as a defender. And I diagnose a little of this as when he uses his physicality, when he's quick and he's early and he slams into a guy and he's front-footed in his defending, he can win because he's got so much lower body strength. What you're seeing is he does not have the acceleration. Running back towards his goal, he just can't keep up. And he's dropped away a little bit. And I think players know that they can get him if there's distance between the two of them, that they can beat him for pace. And, that obviously happened against Frimpong, and it happened again in this game. So going through it a bit, would you say, Tim, in terms of his evolution at that position, if that is indeed a position for him for the future?
Yeah, definitely. I think the other thing is as well, compared to the other guys who play there, like Hincapié and Calafiori, the ball over his head is on more than it is for those players, and that's there's nothing he can do about that. He can't. It's a bit like that Simpsons episode where Bart has to grow like 4 inches to be considered for the role of Fallout Boy, and he turns up like the next day with his hair extra spiked up and big platform shoes on. Like maybe that's an option for Lewis-Skelly. But yeah, definitely, he's one of those guys. He needs to be able to get his body between the man and the ball, and when he can't do that, he's kind of in trouble. And we did see that a bit last season. He had that PSV game where he had to come off. We saw him get sent off against West Ham, was it? Where, he kind of got caught on the ball and he went for the shirt pull. So definitely an area of development if indeed left back is where he is seen in the long term. And I still think there is a question about that. I do think what I would say is that if we're looking to the positives, he did grow into this game. Now, it could just be that the whole team grew into the game. Sorry, excuse me 1 second.
Yeah, well, and I will say, since you're going to take the moment to cough, that I think there was probably rollicking at halftime too, if I had to guess, because they came out of the second half with a different level of focus. So you're right, they all grew into the game, and I'm sure Mikel helped them grow into the game, to put it gently.
And also, I think we saw him, I think you alluded to this on the IR yesterday, he did pop up slightly more centrally. He was playing much more inverted left back than left back. And that was probably because we were dominating the ball and controlling the space far better. So, yeah, definitely. I think there is a decision to make there about whether that is his long-term position. And ultimately, I imagine that Arteta, because he's not playing regularly, right? And that's not going to help because he's not going to get into a flow. But at the same time, I just don't believe that Arsenal would have bought Hincapié. Well, they've loaned him and they're going to buy him, but I don't believe Hincapié would have come in if like Arteta was totally and utterly sold that like Lewis-Skelly's his guy at left back type thing. So I think there's still a question mark there about whether he ends up in midfield, and maybe the space happens there earlier because Marino's 30, 31, Norgard's in his 30, potentially a space of some description. I mean, I don't think he's going to be getting in the team out of Rice or Zubimendi, but he could get closer to the pecking order maybe in midfield in a year or two.
I do want to say, Tim, because it's important and it's Arsenal heritage, Mikel Merino is 29 until he's 30. That's how this works. So
I swear he's been 29 forever.
He's 29 the way I'm 38, mate. It's just how this works. Paul, what I want to talk to you about is whether Mikel Merino impressing against Portsmouth matters or not, given their quality level. It's something I've been thinking about. Kidding.
Elliot, you need to move on.
Okay. Thank you. And look, by the way, there are some other performances here. Like I said, Norgard played center back. He was fine. Ben White, good run around. He was fine. Kepa, I think we're seeing why he's not first choice. The Eza thing, on another day, maybe there'd be an Eza conversation. I think there's more interesting things to talk about. The only thing I'll say on Eza is he had that one moment where he got at the top of the box and got a great shot away. And I just can't help but thinking, if we could get Eberechi as 10 shots around the box, 10 shots would be amazing. 10 touches around the box, we'd have a sensational attack. Because when he touches the ball around the edge of the box, I feel like he just finds a way to make things happen. But we really seem to struggle, or he struggles, or everybody struggles for that to happen in games. And I'd love it if we could find a way to do it more. Because when he does it, as we saw in the derby, and in this game, he pulls something out that can be really impactful. Let's talk about Kai Havertz. I think that's the next logical place to go here. Paul, it is the case, I think people are so desperate to have an opinion about Victor Gyökeres that they have stopped having the ability to analyze or discuss Kai Havertz just as his own player. It has to be through the lens of how he compares to Victor Gyökeres. And I totally get that. But they are such different players who will do such different things that I'd love to just try to do that just talking about Kai Havertz, the player. Him being back is obviously very important. I do have a suspicion that his absence has enhanced his reputation, burnished his reputation to some extent, that we've now elevated him to be something he's not. I think there will still be frustrating moments. I think there'll still be misses, but there's certainly so much in his game that we need and that he can do that we cannot do with the players that we have available in that position currently. Mikel Arteta said, quote, "The last few minutes, I was just watching him move and his awareness, the way he needs to move, when he needs to move, in relation to where he moves. It's just a joy to watch. We've missed him big time. He's back with us. And now we need to maintain him on the field because he's a very important player for us." Paul, I just said it's important not to look at Kai Havertz through the lens of Victor Gyökeres. And I feel like Mikel Arteta just told me to go F myself, because the number of times he says the word movement and where he moves and when he moves, I can't help but feel like these are pointed comments, even if it's not intended that way. So what do you make of Kai's cameo and Mikel making what feels like very pointed comments about the way Kai played?
Yeah, I still think that's because even you, all of us, look at it through the Gyökeres prism, and Arteta doesn't. He's thinking, I think, here's my bet, my contrarian take. Kai Havertz unlocks Victor Gyökeres. I think we're going to be much happier with Victor Gyökeres in the second half of the season for a few different reasons. Tactical flexibility. There'll be times they play together. There'll be games Kai obviously starts and maybe Gyökeres doesn't, and that might be good for Gyökeres too. And I just think Arteta's rubbing his hands at tactical flexibility. He talks a lot about wanting to be unpredictable, to surprise the opponent, etc. And it's his most rotatey season so far from Arteta, partly injuries, but good benches and options, and he's going to love having this option. Havertz looked like he'd never been away. That old cliche. His movement, he was on it. That run he makes, that we find from
is it the one where he plays Noni in behind? He gets because he gets one between the lines on the right half space, and he plays a ball inside the fullback that Noni runs onto. It's just sensational combination play.
Yeah, and when you see it, you say, well, nobody we currently have does that. Now, there are things he doesn't do. And he can miss a shot in front of goal. He can air shot. But by the volume of situations he gets into, he's about around his XG. So he misses some, he gets some, like many. I don't think he's the most brilliant clinical finisher on the planet, but he does it in volume, and his averages smooth out. He's got the height we like. He's an aerial threat that Victor isn't. I know we're not going to do it all in the Victor comparisons, but there will be, he doesn't bang up against centre backs the way Victor does. You can like that in some games and not want it in others. You can like it for the first 60 minutes and then bring on or switch Kai on, because Victor has been wearing down the centre backs, if you value that kind of thing. Some people do. And they'll mix it up, and if you are the opponent preparing for a game, you're not quite sure what you're going to face. And I bet Victor Gyökeres is a better player for us in the second half of this season. And it'll partly because he has competition, but he also has variation of ways we can attack and different. I think against Liverpool, not to do a bit of a downer, they had Victor Gyökeres, who didn't have it wasn't his worst game. Didn't do that much for us, but he did a lot without the ball. Classic did it without the ball, but their centre backs had him where they wanted him, and they didn't move, and they just locked up that centre. And you don't have that with Kai Havertz, because he's not going to stand between Van Dijk and Konate, and it'll just be a different look. And I suspect Kai would have started that game, but other games Victor will look really good, and they'll mix it around and they'll play together. And yeah, I think we will unlock Victor. That's my sneaky suspicion of what comes from Kai Havertz. It's not one or the other. They will unlock each other.
The one thing that's clear is having him back is massive. And keeping him fit is obviously just as important. I mean, whatever you want to say about Victor Gyökeres, the fact that he stays fit and he's been available most of the season has been really, really important. And I think now with Jesus and Gyökeres and Havertz, what's exciting is we have very different profiles and players who can add very different things. But Kai's probably the best of them. And Mikel seemed to feel that way with his comments. So Tim, your thought on those comments and the brief cameo we saw?
Yeah, I mean, there was a touch he takes on the centre circle with his back to goal, and you're a bit like, that's what that looks like.
Yeah,
I forgot what that looked like. I think by some distance, Kai Havertz is still Arsenal's best striker. He's certainly, I think, Arsenal's most all-weather striker. I think Gabriel Jesus, very, very useful. I do wonder physically still what he's really capable of over long to medium term. He has good hold-up play and everything like that, but I still see him as a bit of a bit part player, which is largely for fitness reasons, and he may never be able to progress beyond that. I also think he's not longed for this Arsenal world. I don't think he's going to get another contract, is he? Kai Havertz is. Is Gyökeres going to get another contract? Not at this stage. Is Jesus? No. Havertz will. Unless there is physical evidence not to. And he's our most all-weather striker, that's the thing. But the reason he's our number one striker, I think, as well as just being really good, is the only flaw for him as a striker is he's not an absolute dead-cert killer in front of goal. Well, guess what? Neither of the other guys. Neither of the other guys solve that problem. Gabriel Jesus doesn't have a shot in this game. Does a lot of good stuff. He does. Gabriel Jesus in this game does what I would like Gyökeres to do. That kind of, all right, you didn't get a shot. You didn't look that dangerous. Fair enough. But you took some hits. You held the ball up. You won some free kicks, etc., etc. He did the target man stuff. Whereas Gyökeres sometimes struggles to do that. Havertz can do all of that. He's got lovely soft feet. He can turn. He hasn't got the dribbling of Jesus, and that's the thing that Jesus has, that we want to change things up. you go, okay, actually someone who can really twist and turn in those small spaces. But I think Havertz is just one of those players that no matter where he plays, I think Mikel Arteta just always wants him in the team, and I fully understand why.
Yeah, and I think we're all excited to see what he can do back in the team. I mean, one of the things I think is interesting is Victor Gyökeres is averaging more touches in the attacking penalty area this season than Kai Havertz has for us, but he's turning it into fewer shots. And that's really the thing. I think we'd be much more comfortable with Victor Gyökeres' profile if he was getting his shots away. And I think we'd be seeing what we acquired him for more. It just has been the case that,
that's also because Havertz does come away from the front line and he goes to those places, and that enables other players to move around him. Whereas at the moment, it kind of feels like Gyökeres stands there, for want of a better phrase. And it's a bit like, can you vary it up? Can you go out to the wing and let someone run inside you? Can you come short a little bit? It kind of feels like he marks himself between the centre-backs. Havertz doesn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, look, I think it's fair to keep an open mind on the quality of the players that we have at the position, but to acknowledge that Kai is probably, based on what we've seen, the best of the bunch and the one who gives us the most things that he can do and the most ways he can impact a game. And now the key is just working him back in such a way that he can stay fit. I think the club have been really sensible, though, because it was rumored he was going to be back a while ago. And maybe he was having setbacks, maybe he was having knocks. But here's what I will say. He's come back at a time when he can play Pompey in the FA Cup with a big lead. We could throw him into some League Cup ties. And I'm not suggesting those League Cup ties aren't important, but it's not the existential crisis of the Premier League. We could throw him in a game against Inter or Kairat Almaty at the Emirates games. And again, the jeopardy is lower. There's some opportunities to integrate him before all of a sudden he's starting against Manchester United in the Premier League in a game we must win. But that's out there. And that's a reasonable timeline to get him from this appearance to that. And there's ways to get him there. And that's really encouraging too. And in the meantime, we've been winning games with what we have available. So it's a very, very good place for us to be. And you look at it, and there's, I think, sort of whispers that Mascara is not far from being back. Hopefully the Nkapie injury isn't too bad. And like right now, things are at least a little bit better than they have been in a while. And that's a good place for us to be. Let's finish the pod off, though, with a look ahead to Chelsea on Wednesday. We don't have the manager's comments yet. He'll have his press conference on Tuesday. We're recording this too early for the FA Cup draw, by the way, as well, so we don't have news on that. But, Paul, setting aside my disdain for the League Cup, once you're in the semifinal and you have to play the two legs, you might as well go and win the thing, right? I mean, that's how I feel about it. We're in it now. Let's win it. Let's win the quad. Let's win everything. The worst case scenario from a fixture congestion standpoint is we add one more game, right? So it just is the case that we should go for this. And the way these games have fallen on the calendar, we get to play this game after having rotated pretty heavily. Forest, okay, that's a really important game. Then we get another game that comes up where we have a kind of an opening again, and the fixtures aren't that painful where we have to really make decisions. So I expect Mikel will go very, very strong, but that it won't be what we may have recognized as our first choice team. What's your thought on how we should be approaching this, and how Mikel might think about setting the team out?
Yeah, so like the one thing you'd say about the Carabao Cup, even when you take it seriously, is it's a cup thing. FA Cup, Carabao Cup, late rounds. You still get to do something a bit different. You can try things out. It doesn't mean it might be every bit as strong a side, but you can be a little creative in how you go. The other thing you can do is just play players who are the most ready and the most fit. It's not so much, I got to protect my stars, as who's furthest away from the red line, who's right in the green zone. And if that happens to be Bukayo Saka and Declan Rice, you don't play players who are a little more revved up and now, Madueke or maybe at left 8, Marino aren't necessarily in the red zone either. But I think the manager can look at it and just say, well, pretty much everybody's rested. I can go strong, but I can also try a few things. So I don't know what he'll do, but he doesn't have to put out the Premier League starting 11. as we might see it right this moment, just to go strong in this game, which is the beauty of it. He can try something a little different, and a Carabao Cup semi-final can, because there's two legs, you can go for it, and you can be more creative and less like the last thing we want to do is drag the Premier League, the 1984, it's grey, this trudge to try and hold on to this trophy that we haven't been awarded. The angst, like, let's fucking go and have some fun. And I think the manager will want to have a different vibe to the Premier League, and he'll want fun attack. He won't want a replay. Forget the result. He won't want a replay of the last visit to Stamford Bridge. He'll want to go out there and play football and have a ding-dong game and have these players express themselves.
It's interesting because obviously that last game was very ill-tempered. There's probably a lot of bad feeling from it, but there's been a manager change. Liam Rosenior, who, I'll be honest, gives off some Brent vibes to me a little bit with some of his sayings and behaviors, but a very different manager, may have a very different mindset, may want them to approach the game in a different way, whether that intense physicality is still in their game or some would say over the line physicality. We'll have to see. I think Caicedo once again is banned for a game, so he will not be available for the first leg. I don't know what Rosenior's approach to this will be, but my instinct is, he gets launched into the job and he's got 3 games to win a trophy in his first couple of months being in the job. So this for him should be priority 1, because who knows what he can achieve in the league as he's trying to institute a new system and new approach. Who knows what he can do in Europe, but he's 3 games away from having a trophy that he can lift. And that makes his start to life at Chelsea a lot easier if he can do that. So I think he will be prioritizing this massively. Not that we won't be, but it's even, I think, more important in context for him than for us. So, Tim, I agree with Paul. I don't think it'll necessarily be the Premier League first choice 11 that we're familiar with. One of the issues, of course, is due to injuries at the back line, we may have few choices in terms of who we can rest or who we can leave in. I think Gabby will have to start with no Nkapie, with no Mascara. Myles will likely have to start as well. I guess we could do Timber and White. But there are limited choices back there. The more interesting choices are around the rest of the pitch. So how quote unquote first choice, I hear Clive cringing, do you expect this to be? And just sort of how do you think about this tie in terms of its significance for our season overall?
Yeah, so I think that there are patterns in who wasn't used on Saturday, like Trossard doesn't come on, Saka doesn't come on, Rice doesn't come on. I think that tells you all 3 of them are probably going to start on Wednesday. I would still go a little bit mix and match, and by that I mean I would play like the squad players who are the squad players, but do you know what I mean? Like I'd play Marino, I'd play Eza again. With Madueke it's slightly different, isn't it? Because it's going back to Stamford Bridge, and I don't know whether that gives it an extra emotional dimension. I'm not in a position to work out whether that means anything or not. What I will say is when he came on in the league game, it did seem to affect him, to be honest. Maybe it wouldn't this time. I would play Gyökeres in this game as well. And again, he wasn't used, so I think he will, because that's another one you can easily change it on 60 minutes. Because the last time we played Chelsea in the semi-final, we beat them in 2018. The way we did it, it was the same way round as well. We did the first leg at Stamford Bridge. We actually went kind of second string, and we drew 0-0, and we turned the second leg into a one-off game, and then we went strong for the second game. And I wonder if we can do something a little bit similar to that, because you've got a second leg and you've got a load of substitutions. If you find yourself like 2-0 down after 60 minutes, there's still like 2 hours of football left. You can get your subs on. You can go, right, let's send for the cavalry, see if we can get one back or something like that. The second game, I think, is a week after the last Champions League group game, which we should rotate heavily for anyway. Right. So, maybe we'll be in a more of a position to rotate. It's off the back of Leeds away, which, will be a tough game. But essentially, we should have the midweek off before that in a first team sense. So I wonder if we try and box clever. Maybe we do that and it blows up in our faces, but maybe box clever a little bit. For me, this is less about who we leave out. And there are just some players like Marino, like Eza, I kind of look at and think, I don't think that weakens our team, having those guys in there. So could we spare one of Rice or Zubimendi this game? Maybe Rice, because he's had that knee injury. Could we play Marino and Zubimendi and, be okay? I think so. Could we play Eza again and maybe just give Ødegaard the last half an hour again? I think we could. I'd mix and match it like that. I'd play Kepa in goal. I think you have to give him these games. It's a really good second choice goalkeeper to have, and to some extent that's a sweet deal, and you should try and keep it sweet. Obviously, again, it has some significance for him going back to Chelsea, but I'd mix and match it a little bit. I'd love to be able to find a way, maybe, to not play Gabriel. To say, actually, Gabriel played the Portsmouth game, so Saliba, you have this game, and Gabriel kind of, but only if Calafiori's back, for example. At that point, can we play Calafiori centre-back and have Gabriel on the bench? And, then you've kind of saved both your centre-halves over the week. I'd like to see kind of that level of pragmatism. I also think Portsmouth would have been a useful exercise for guys like Madueke and Eza who've struggled for minutes. And I kind of think there'd be some use in giving them the game as well.
Yeah, I mean, we played Liverpool on the 8th of January. We play Forest on the 17th of January. There is a huge benefit if you can find a little winter break in a season. A huge benefit, something that big clubs just don't get. And the really critical winning time is coming. We have the second leg at home. So even if this doesn't go our way, I don't think there's anything Chelsea are going to do to us in the first leg that we can't come back and overturn in the second leg. I would say,
I was going to say, sorry, to your point there, in the Invincible season, we did exactly that with Henry. We drew Middlesbrough in the FA Cup and we had them in the League Cup semi-final. And those games took place back to back over 10 days. And Arsene Wenger sent Thierry Henry, he said go on holiday. And Thierry Henry went to New York for a week. And he was like, we'll handle these games without you. We lost the League Cup semi-final. Who remembers that other than me? And we won the FA Cup game without him, but we gave him 10 days off. And then when it came to Liverpool on Good Friday and we have to win, he scores a hat-trick. And that's, my mind is still there, Elliot. I want to win the Carabao Cup. I think it'd be useful. It's a trophy. I think it'd be useful for this team. I think it'd be useful for the belief for the rest of the season. I'm not completely dismissing it, but my mind is still, I want the good players to be available in April.
Yeah, and by the way, this is the whole reason we have a big squad. So I'm not saying play Marley Salmon at striker, right, and bring in Josh Nichols to play midfield. I'm saying use Eberechi Eze, right? Use Noni Madueke. Use, you could say use Victor Gyökeres if you think he's not going to be that position. Use Mikel Merino, right? Use Christian Norgard. Use those players because this is your chance to get a nice, clean break for some of the key. Declan Rice, who's had a knee injury issue that he's managing, right? Don't bring Calafiori back sooner than you need. Bukayo Saka, Mikel literally just talked about his minutes and took him off in the late stages of a Liverpool game. We don't want to be taking Bukayo Saka off in the winning stages of games down the stretch this season. So we need to make sure he's protected. This is a chance to get him 10 days in the middle of a season, which big clubs just don't get the opportunity to do. Not to mention that you could probably rest him for Kairat, right? So there's some little windows here. And I don't think Chelsea are so good that if we put out Eza and Marino and Gyökeres and, and Ethan, if we want to use him, they're going to turn us over and we can't recover it at the Emirates. So I would, again, I'm not saying I don't want to win this, and I'm not saying it's not important. I'm saying if you have a big squad and you spent your money not on one or two elite talents, but on filling out the squad, then this is proof of concept that was the right way to go. Can you stay in a semifinal against Chelsea with some of the players who aren't maybe first choice? We'll find that out. There's going to be an instant reaction for that. We've got our mid-season data review tomorrow. We've got the interview with Mike for Gooners versus Cancer coming up now. It's about 10 minutes to hear a really important cause. I hope you will stay with us to just hear why he's supporting cancer charities and about this walk that's happening, this 50-mile walk in London. Tim, thank you very much.
My pleasure as always.
Paul, thanks.
Woohoo!
My name's Elliot Smith. And now I will turn it over to Elliot Smith and Mike from Gooners versus Cancer. Okay, and now Mike from Gooners versus Cancer is on the podcast, which is always a pleasure. We don't do it frequently enough, but when we do it is usually for a very good reason, and this is no exception. We're going to be talking about a really important event coming up to help raise money for important cancer charities and in coordination with Gooners versus Cancer. So, Mike, as always, not just a pleasure to have you on the pod, but just a pleasure to see you and chat with you.
Thanks, Elliot. It's been a while. Good to see you again, and hello to your wonderful audience as well.
Yeah, thanks. I got a chance to see you in Kansas City, obviously, for a live event we did out there, which was great. It is just the case that we're very lucky to have a big community of wonderful people. And it's easy sometimes when you just engage in digital spaces, whether that's WhatsApp chats or on social media or whatever, to really forget how much it means to be together. But I do just want to say from the bottom of my heart how much I enjoyed spending time with you this summer. This late summer, early fall. It was great to see you.
It was a great weekend, and nice to have Gabby Martinelli save the weekend from being forgettable in that last minute. And I was able to get that advance notice of the goal so that I could be the one on the NBC camera just lifting my arm up about 2 minutes before he scored. Maybe not 2 minutes, but
it was really nice of the club to tell you they were planning that. Why they didn't plan a winner, I'll never know, but a draw was fine in that instance.
Sometimes they're not the best at long-range planning, but it was good.
Yeah, it's fine. Let's get on to some serious business here, which is what you do for Gooners versus Cancer. And real quick, before we get to the specific ask and the specific event that you got coming up, why don't you just refresh people's memories for anyone who hasn't met you or heard from you before on Gooners versus Cancer generally, why this is important to you and what you do there.
Yeah, thanks. And Gooners versus Cancer is a charity. It's now a full-on registered charity here in the U.S. We raise funds for a variety of different cancer charities using as you just mentioned, the amazing community that we have of Gooners all around the world. And obviously just about everybody that has been affected in some way by some sort of cancer. My personal story is that unfortunately I lost my dad about, hard to believe, almost 16 years ago due to leukemia.
Yeah.
He battled it. He had family rallying around him, but ultimately the disease, affected us in a way that I never could have imagined happening. And a few years later, when opportunities arose for me to be able to associate with people, not just here in my local area, but nationally, internationally, who are also Arsenal fans, it occurred to me that there was some good that could be done. And since 2017, we've been raising funds for all sorts of cancer charities, starting with blood cancer, because that was the one that obviously affected me the most. But now we raise funds that provide grants for every type of cancer that you can imagine that really touches just about everybody around the globe. And we run live events similar to the one that we were at in Kansas City, similar to when the club came here in the US. We've done live events in the UK, like an art show highlighting all of Arsenal's amazing entrepreneurial artists like North Banksy.
You've been great about that.
And otherwise. And it's just been a very, very wonderful experience seeing the generosity and the way that this has caught on. And so, and you, of course, have always been very, very supportive. Your fundraising amazing. Your fundraising abilities are also known to be amazing, but you've been very, very generous to us as well. And so we continue at goonersvcancer.com to run campaigns throughout the year that help to raise awareness and funds, of course, because awareness is great, but funds are ultimately what helps support families and provide for the research to try to end these cancers. I would love to be able to end this charity.
Yeah,
of course that's going to take a pretty big lift from the research community, and and that's what we're hoping will happen. Sooner the better.
Yeah. Well, firstly, obviously, I didn't know your father, but I'm sure he would be immensely proud that you've taken the hardship that you suffered and that your family suffered at the hands of the disease and turned that into the most positive experience you could by wanting to give back and help others. So, I think that takes immense character and courage. And so I certainly thank you for doing that. I think that's something you can be immensely proud of. I know you spend a lot of time in London. I know you spend a lot of time in and around Arsenal, and it's worth saying that you've been indefatigable, not only in your efforts to raise money for Gooners versus Cancer, but in your support of sort of local artists and members of the community that do things in support of Arsenal. So another thing that
I've been lifted up in my life from others doing nice things and introducing me to people and just essentially making my life more enriched. And there's nothing more that you can do that makes you happier than to, do the same thing in return. I mean, I'm a big believer in that movie, Pay It Forward. And I think if we all did that a little bit more than we already do, the world would be a better place. So
great reflection on your integrity. And so we'll get to the actual specifics now, which is what I want to make sure everybody zeroes in on, because there's an event coming up. There is a chance to donate in support of that event. There's a chance to win some cool stuff by donating, and also make a big difference in the lives of people that are suffering with cancer and their families. So, Mike, first of all, let's talk about this 50-mile walk. It's in London. I have to admit that were this not such a serious topic, I would have a good chuckle at the idea of you taking on 50 miles, and I'm inclined to want to be there to see how you handle it. But why don't you tell me what this is all about?
I want people not only to pay to support me to complete this walk, I want people to pay and donate because they want to laugh at me if I can't complete this walk. But
skepticism's as good a reason as any to donate.
Yeah, the first 5 minutes of this is about how rational and good of a person I am, and I'm not saying that about myself. It's all lauding. And now we get to talk about how stupid I am for taking this on.
Well, tell us about it.
It's a great event. It's something that I set my sights on last year. To roll back just a moment, I met a gentleman back during one of the Arsenal tours in New York City. I think it was 2022, who does amazing fundraising work on his own. His name is Adrian Conaboy. He's based out of London. He's an Arsenal fan. He lives in New York City now and started an organization called We Can Kick It, both in the States and in the UK, which helps to empower and uplift families who are dealing with cancers very much like I was with my father 15 years ago. It affects kids. Kids get sick. Kids have parents who are sick. And I can tell you, it drives the family into a world where cancer is everything. Every morning, every day, every night is about cancer. And we want that to not be the case to the extent that's possible. And so they raise funds and they put on soccer clinics, football clinics, camps, tournaments, all of those sorts of things to kind of uplift and support families who are dealing with these diseases. And for a couple of years now, they have been doing a walk. It started, I think, at 40 miles. This year, it's going to be 50 miles to and from all of the football stadiums in the top 2 tiers in London, or at least most of them, 10 of them, starting at Brentford, going through West London to South London to Palace, to East London to West Ham, all the way up to, that lot up the road, and finishing at Emirates Stadium on World Cancer Day.
It's okay to visit an NFL stadium on your walk. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, but we'll probably be about 46 miles in by the time we get to Tottenham Stadium. So, I may not have anything left to expectorate onto the grounds there, but it's an ambitious thing. I have been training for a month and a half now.
That's awesome.
Including when I was in London a couple of weeks ago, which was amazing. I walked from Highbury to Dial Square, which was about 18 miles a couple of weeks ago, and ended up with a pint of Guinness at Dial Square Pub, where the club was founded. It's just, it's all in my feels right now, and I am destined. I am determined to do this, even if my leg and my arm fall off.
Well, you'll have a lot of support along the way, and people will make sure you get to that finish line. I have no doubt. So let's get to the ask here, which is to go to GoonersVCancer.com. The link will be in the show notes, GoonersVCancer.com. This event is on February 4th, which is World Cancer Day. It is a 50-mile walk visiting 10 different London grounds. So it's going to be a really exciting opportunity for people to show their commitment and for you to support them in showing their commitment, doing something that really makes a difference. Obviously, the respite that families need, there's a foundation here in Minneapolis called Angel Fund, the Angel Foundation, and very simple, kind of similar thing, right? You don't think about this, but a lot of cancer families, unfortunately, especially here in the United States, where being sick can be ruinous financially, they're not just sick with cancer, they can't make their rent or they can't make their car payment, right? And so helping them out with the day-to-day necessities so that they are not dealing with the anxiety of cancer and the anxiety of potentially being evicted or losing their vehicle, but they can focus on their attempt to beat the disease. So I think things like We Can Kick It, that tries to especially help young people, but help families to take the load off, to find a respite, to find a way to escape from the all-consuming nature of this illness and the way that it can impact those families, right, is a wonderful and ambitious project, and one that makes a palpable difference. Don't get me wrong, giving money to scientific efforts to eliminate the disease is critical. But there is sometimes just that need to say, okay, that's ambitious and that's grand, and that may take years and may take billions of dollars, billions of pounds, but every pound can help one family who's under the fist of this disease and it's just pounding them relentlessly. And if we can help lift that off of them, they can find a little respite in their life and maybe have more energy to devote to beating the disease. So I think it's a wonderful cause. I feel very strongly about these kinds of causes where there's a direct impact on lives, much like what we support with the Zatari Refugee Camp, seeing the individual children who are helped. And I think this is of a piece with that. So if people go to goonersvcancer.com and give generously, they're not only helping support these people who need it, they're not only sponsoring you in this ambitious 50-mile walk, but they do get entered to win some stuff. So let's just quickly touch on that.
Yeah. As always, and this is the cheesiest thing ever, but I like to put the fund in fundraising, or no, sorry, the fund in fundraising. And what's more fun? The other people
put the funds in it. You put the fun in it.
Exactly. They put the funds in it. I do I'll walk 50 miles. They don't have to walk 50 miles. We're not asking for them to come along with me, just to support or laugh at me. And you can win one of 12 different prizes. You can see all of that on the website. It includes signed shirts from First Team, from Lee Dixon, Alan Smith, the folks who have always been so generous with Gooners versus Cancer with their time, and a lot of other things. Ruth Beck art, I mentioned her before. There's some giveaways there. So if you go to goonersvcancer.com, you can learn about the event. You can learn about Gooners versus Cancer. You can learn about We Can Kick It. And of course, most importantly, you can donate in any denomination. It will all convert over to the default denomination, and you'll be entered in a prize where we will be drawing all of the prizes the evening of February 8th, a couple days after the race, because I'm going to need a few days to probably reattach my limbs and get a heart transplant. So,
well. Firstly, I hope that doesn't happen. I don't think it will happen, but if it does,
maybe
happen,
I'll get a better heart. I mean, you'll
have done a bit of good for the world along the way. So please look. I know we ask you to give generously every April, and we will be doing that again. I'm very cognizant of not taking on too many fundraising requests throughout the year because we don't want to ask too much of people, and I am aware of that. I will say that there are so many people whose lives have been touched by cancer that it's very, very easy, or nearly impossible, I would say, to not know someone, if that isn't yourself, whose lives have been affected by this. So a wonderful cause, a chance to win, a chance to support the people going on this walk, and a chance to help people who really need it. So it's goonersvcancer.com, goonersvcancer.com, V as in victory. Victory for Arsenal, victory over cancer. goonersvcancer.com. Head there now, check out the information, and if you would give generously, it would be hugely appreciated. Remember, the event is February 4th on World Cancer Day. Mike, I hope to have you on again soon to chat all things Arsenal, maybe some things fundraising, but also just to chat with you because you're a lovely person, and I miss you and hope you're doing well. Anytime. I hope to see you soon, and thanks to you and to your crew, and to, of course, your amazing listeners and viewers. You've built an amazing community yourself here, and the good that you do is incredible. So thank you for just including me in a small piece of that. Yeah, absolutely thrilled to have you here. Thanks, Mike. Okay, that'll do it for now. More coming up after this. Okay, that'll do it. Links to the donation websites are in the show notes. Main big mid-season data review over on Patreon tomorrow, for those of you that care about that, and many of you definitely don't. Instant reaction after the Chelsea game, main pod on Thursday, and on we go. Thanks for being here, everybody. We love you, and we will talk to you after Arsenal 10, Chelsea 0.